Alright, what's up booktubers and YouTubers alike? It's me, Troy. I'm back again with another video. Before I get started, I want to say thank you to anyone who has subscribed, commented, or liked any of my previous videos. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. This is going to be a summer, what I've been reading, summer overview, sort of speak. So it's like summer's Eve, make your spirit right. I don't know, whatever that slogan is. The first book that I managed to read this summer was Stephen King's Mr. Mercedes. Yeah. Look at the back. Like on the back, there's like ice cream truck in a puddle of blood and blood dripping down. So it's like, you know, like blood and ice cream. You know, anyway, Mr. Mercedes, Stephen King is the book that I really thought was the perfect book to open up the summer with. Hey, we're not, you know, ice cream, but we sure are hot enough to be reading this book, and that was a corny ass joke. So first, let me get into why this book is a lot different than previous Stephen King books. So if you're not really trying to read about something supernatural or paranormal, then yeah, this is the perfect book. I say that this is a hardboiled detective fiction novel, but it's more of an open hardboiled detective fiction novel, and even more specific, more of an open mystery. And what I mean by an open mystery is that you know who the culprit is as well as who the protagonist is, which you would have known that anyway. But in that sense, it's more of a cat and mouse game between the culprit and the protagonist, instead of the protagonist, you know, trying to uncover who the culprit was. You know, that's pretty much it. So I'll go ahead and just read like a little bit about what the case was about. So in the pre-dawn hours in a distressed American city, hundreds of unemployed men and women line up for the opening of a job fair. They are tired and cold and desperate. Emerging from the fog, invisible until it is too late, a lone driver plows through the crowd in a stolen Mercedes, running over innocent, backing up, and charging again. 8 people are killed, 15 are wounded. The killer escapes. That was the case that Bill Hodges was involved with, and a year later he subsequently ended up retiring from the homicide department. You are a homicide detective. As far as to my knowledge, I think that every four or 5 years they rotate into different departments like ATF or Vice or something like that. But just imagine what it's like to experience this as well as other murders within your career, and then all of a sudden being retired and having not absolutely anything to do with your life as far as saving lives and uncovering murders. So you're just sitting there stewing on past murders, past guilt, past cases, and it's eating you alive, really. In Bill Hodges' case, it does bring about depression, so he ends up spending his daylight hours sitting in front of the TV watching like Judge Joe Brown, Judge Judy, and whatever that Latina lady named Judge. I don't know all them folks' names, but anyways, The Price is Right, you can put that on there too. He contemplates suicide that goes along with his depression. So he's always taking his father's revolver, and he's loading the revolver up and he's sticking it in his mouth, but he's not pulling the trigger. What initiates the plot of this story is that the Mercedes killer decides to send Bill Hodges a message, a letter. In that letter, he is inviting Bill Hodges to log onto this internet site where the Mercedes killer is trying to chat with Bill Hodges. And with that chatting, the Mercedes killer wishes to encourage Bill Hodges to finally pull the trigger on that revolver and blow his brains out. And that is where the story takes off. So I'm gonna make this quick in saying that I did think the book was kind of cliche at some parts. A lot of that clichéness has to do with the plot itself, and another half of that clichéness has to do with the characters. I could get into each individual character where I felt there was something kind of wrong with them, like it wasn't too realistic to me, and you know, that's just how it is anyway. But the character I really want to speak about the most as far as clichéness goes is with the actual killer. This fool got on my damn nerves with how racist he was. But the point I'm making is that why do, for every black person in this book or gay person in this book, because he had some gay slurs going too, and I think it was another one I want to say about Muslims maybe. He had a racist slur to go with it. That really irritated me, because I think it's already bad enough that he's a murderer who goes around killing people. But you know, when you're reading the book and for the black kid in this book who was super cool and had his own stereotypical colorism, decorations around him himself, I did not necessarily need the main killer always referring to him as the N-word. Like, it's not even because I'm black, it's because it's just like irritating to me to have to see that when I don't feel like it's necessary. But that's just my view. His mother, if you go into further details about his past, you will see that his mother had some of that too, but then again, even that didn't seem realistic enough to me. So that was one thing that irritated me. It's just like you pounding on all these unnecessary things to make him a bad, evil person, and it's like he's already bad and evil enough as it is. Actually, he was low-key to me compared to some of the other villains that I've read, and even other villains in Stephen King books. But on that note, I will leave it at that. But on the upside, that I do want to say that there was a woman character here who was, I don't want to say mentally ill, but she was kind of psychologically damaged. And what I love what Stephen King does about characters is that he takes the underdogs, always, just about always in his books, he takes the underdogs and brings them into like the top position. And she was one of the coolest characters in this book. I think Mr. Mercedes had his good moments, it had his bad moments, it had his super sad moments, it definitely had his laughs in there too, and not so much his creepy moments. But I will give this book 5 stars at the end. So I think that if you haven't read it, you should go pick it up. The next book that I managed to read this summer was The Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. Oh my god. I'm not going to go too much into the details about this book as far as summary wise, because I'm sure many of you have already seen the movie. I do have a review up and I will post that link there too, as always. But what I will say about The Silence of the Lambs is that Mr. Thomas Harris does not waste anything in his books. Do you hear what I'm saying? This is my first reading of him. Nothing is wasted. I'm not saying he's the top writer. I'm not saying he's the worst writer. I am only saying that his writing is really clever. Just about every word has a purpose in this book. Every character plot, every character motivation, all of that stuff has a reason in this book, and I really enjoyed that, and that I think is very hard to find. So like I said, I'm not going to go into too many details about this book. If you have read Silence of the Lambs, or if you just seen the movie, I suggest you interchange both medias and just get the full, complete, complex story, because it was really, really, really a good book. And Clarice Starling is probably one of the top 5 best female protagonists I've ever read. She was badass and she was a smart ass, but she was a good badass and a good smart ass. The next book I read was Albert French's Billy. Okay, so I really want to just take the time to just kind of, this video will not do this book justice. Billy takes place in 1937 Mississippi. It's about a 10-year-old boy named Billy, of course, Billy, who is trialed as an adult. He is trialed for manslaughter, or convicted of manslaughter, and consequently he is executed because of this. A 10-year-old kid is executed because of this. I just want to say that this book, before I even get into like what happened, why, I don't even want to give it away, but it is given away in my review. All I want to say is this book was hard, and I don't mean from the writing aspect or the technical writing aspect. I mean from the story itself. It was hard. It was frustrating. It was saddening. It was maddening. Like I said, it was discouraging at some points. I think at the end of this book, the last few pages of this book before Billy was executed, it was not pretty. And you know, that goes in hand with how well Albert French told Billy's story. Wow. You know, I read this book like a month ago, and almost 2 months now, I think, and it's just, I can't even talk about this book for real. I think what I did was I went ahead and wrote the review to get everything that I wanted to get out at that point, and this book will take you to a place that a few people probably can even concede to go to, because I'm telling you, this book, The fourth book that I want to go ahead and share that I managed to read this summer was P.D. James's Cover Her Face. P.D. James, as I said before, is a English mystery writer. She writes the Adam Dalgliesh mystery series. This is the first book in this series, and I want to go ahead and say that I was blown away by this book. It was so freaking good. Now, I'm familiar with P.D. James. I read some of her other books in her other series, as some of you probably kept up with me and know. But for this being the first in our Adam Dalgliesh, I can't say his name right, series, and for me to be so hesitant about picking up this particular series, I have to say it was really good. P.D. James is amazing at providing her characters motivations. She's amazing at providing her characters secrets. She's amazing at giving her characters plot points and putting them strategically inside of the narrative so that, you know, she can unfold the mystery. And she's great at handing out red herrings, if you know what red herrings are, as well as evidence that'll lead you astray. And I just want to say this was a good book. It's about I was going to say chambermaid. It's about a parlor maid named Sally Jupe. Sally Jupe is, girl, she's a redhead. She got an attitude problem. She will get smart with you. She would get smart with her mistresses and all of that stuff. She just don't have no problems. She's sneaky too, but she's also good at her job. That's why people keep her around. She ends up being murdered in her room by strangulation. So somebody came in and strangled her throughout the night. So that is all that I want to share as of right now. I think the next video I'm gonna go ahead and introduce probably some 4 more books. I'm probably try to do this in 4 to keep the video short, but 4 more books that I've read this summer. So I want to say thank you guys for joining along. If you have read any of these books, then please go ahead and talk about what you thought about these books. If you have any further questions, please ask them below and I'll be glad to answer them. And what are you reading this summer? Go ahead in the comments box and share what you're reading this summer. Are you having a summer of mysteries and sad, tragic historical fiction stories also? If so, then, you know, share along. But hey, if you're reading anything else, then that's just as cool. So I have got to go.